Hello. As we come out of the COVID crisis, we need a physical health recovery plan for older people. Welcome to the second in a series of later life conversations hosted by EPIC Norwich. I'm Pete Kelly, appropriately a retired journalist supporting the charity, and today to discuss this question, we're bringing together three people. Ben Jones is director of Active Norfolk, the organisation tasked by Sport England to lead the movement for movement across the county. Active Norfolk has been proactive in working with a range of non-sporting organisations to reduce problems of access to physical activity, to reduce inequalities. Active Norfolk's main strategy is focused on how we, as a society, create a culture of healthy, active people. Stephen Hitcham is an exercise and sport instructor specialising in older and vulnerable people, and is director of Exercising People in Communities, EPIC Norfolk. EPIC organises a range of events such as the Blickling Half Marathon and the EPIC 5K runs. In addition, Stephen is the leader of Good Gym Norwich. And Dan Skipper is the chief executive of EPIC Norwich, a charity which has a range of regular events around the city, from social groups to information and advice. And recently it has launched a summer age healthy campaign to encourage older people to enjoy becoming more active, whether it's for the first time or again. So Stephen, perhaps we could start with you and ask, why do we need a physical health recovery plan for older people?
Yeah, well, I think older people have probably been impacted the most during the last sort of nearly 18 months. And part of being active is a key role in healthy aging. So I think a lot of older people have deconditioned during the pandemic, which has resulted in lots of negative impacts on their physical health. So obviously, as we get older, it's more crucial to add that extra physical activity element into our lifestyles. That has obviously declined during the pandemic, and that's resulted in, say, the deconditioning physically, and then the social isolation as well has also impacted older people. It then has a knock-on effect on some of the services as well. So like the reablement service, they're inundated with people coming through their service off the back of more hospital admissions. More older people are falling because they're deconditioned. A lot of them have had to shield, especially at the start of the pandemic, and that has led to all these negative impacts on their health. And then obviously that affects their confidence, and it reduces the chances of them becoming more physically active because they're more vulnerable of going out. And also speaking to sort of, I work with a lot of older people, speaking to various care homes and sheltered housing schemes. A lot of them have been impacted. A lot of people have actually sort of sadly passed away, not as a result of actually having COVID, the consequences of the environment over the last nearly 18 months. That's been a massive impact. And, that's where we've got to address these issues. It's not about the people that have actually, had COVID-19. It's the result of the lifestyle we've had to leave off the back of that.
Yeah. Ben, how are you finding that? This need for a recovery plan?
Yeah, I think it's really important. Steve's made some excellent points already.
Yeah.
Clearly, as a society, we've had restrictions placed on us in a way in which we haven't before, and those things obviously have intended consequences, reducing risk of transmission, particularly for vulnerable populations. But there are some unintended consequences to those decisions as well, and there are physical and emotional and social consequences to those decisions. And many of those, Steve's highlighted deconditioning in particular. And for those people that aren't maybe familiar with what we mean when we say deconditioning, we're talking about reductions in physical health that leave people more vulnerable physically to things like falls because of reductions in flexibility or in muscle strength or cardiorespiratory function. Basically, if you're sat around not doing a lot for quite a long period of time, it's not really good for the human body. So we need to think about what we can do collectively to enable people to build resilience again, and that obviously comes in a number of contexts. There's the resilience to COVID-19 itself. If we're healthier from a respiratory perspective, if we're stronger physically, then it leaves us in a better position to deal with these things if we're unfortunate enough to become infected. But also there's the psychological and social elements too, and we need to make sure that we're helping people to remain or become connected, and to find friendships and add value to their lives, because clearly we have to put a number of things on hold when we're safeguarding the most vulnerable people across society. But that can't be at the expense of people. Just, you can't just cease to exist just because there are challenges. We need to help people enjoy a quality of life and find a way forward which points to a brighter future for everybody.
Dan, the summer campaign your charity is launching, I mean, presumably that is partly with this in mind, the idea of a recovery plan for older people.
Yes, definitely. And I think just going to pick up on Ben's last word there about quality of life. And I think, we've all felt the touch of COVID in view of the impacts that it's had on our social behaviours, with our family and friends, but also with our local communities. And I think, a lot of behaviours are shaped through those connections, whether that be people we go to classes with, or whether we try different exercises on our own or with other people. And I think COVID has meant some of those behaviours have changed. And what we're trying to do in this campaign is help people think about physical and social connection again, about reminding people about things they might have used to have done. And what we have seen, unfortunately, is a number of really good community activity groups which have not survived COVID, in either their local leadership or the buildings not reopened yet, for example. But yeah, that campaign's really to help people just have a bit of a thought about the investment in themselves, because I think that quality of life thing is a big challenge. I think we all through COVID felt our quality of life may have declined in view of not having that social connection and maybe the ability to do physical activity, and somehow we need to get that back again. And also the sort of wider, just putting COVID to one side for a bit, that, probably in the UK, we're not that great with physical activity generally. And that, we're an aging population and that's going to continue. So there's that relationship between investment in ourselves, physical and mental health, in view of we're going to live quite long and we want a good quality of life, and that we need to probably have a think about that and look at the mechanisms of how we encourage a healthy later life, which might start a lot earlier than when you hit 50.
So I wonder if I can ask you, Ben, I mean, what should be in this plan? What would you say are the key things we need to be providing for people?
Well, I think the key areas have already been highlighted, both by Steve and Dan. There's the body needs to move in order to stay well. Yeah. So we need to factor that into our planning. We need ways in which people can feel confident and able to build physical activity into their lives in a sustainable way, which delivers benefits for them. That doesn't mean everybody going out buying some Lycra and lifting some serious weights, but it's about finding ways in which people can build physical activity into their daily lives. I think that the focus on the different elements of the value that physical activity brings. I've mentioned the physical side just then, but clearly the emotional and social side is key too. So we need to find opportunities to help people find and build connections with each other within and across communities. Access to services which can incorporate physical activity that help people enjoy the experiences. And we talk about it seriously, and we're talking obviously pretty seriously now, but this is also about just having fun and people enjoying themselves. And physical activity is, a vehicle for enjoyment. It's not necessarily the reason why people might do something. It's just a consequence of something that they're doing. So, they have fun and they happen to have been exercising while they've been doing it. And I think that's something that we need to retain a focus on, because not everybody is always inspired to to make the time and effort to be physically active. But if they think about they've got an opportunity to do something fun, where physical activity might be the byproduct or the consequence of that thing which is fun, then I think that that's also a good thing. So I think that, you know, the physical and social connectivity are the two major elements that for this population in particular, that I think warrant greater attention and greater focus as we come up with some, hopefully some sustainable solutions to help people live well for longer.
Thank you. I could see you nodding a lot there, Stephen. I'm sort of, so I'd kind of like to ask you the same question. What do you think we need to provide? And also picking up on what Ben's saying, I mean, do you think people get put off by having an exaggerated idea of what is going to be required?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's always been a myth around physical activity of all ages, to be fair. People, and same with sport, any type of thing like that, people seem to think they've got to be at a certain level to take part, where it's not like that at all. You know, what the services we offer are actually targeted at people becoming physically active. So there'll be, you know, for example, my like online exercise classes, they'll be very basic, but they can be adapted so people can work a little bit harder. And I think, you know, a modern day instructor as well will be able to cater for all abilities. And that's sort of a message that is really important to get across, because a lot of people, the big barrier will be, I can't do that. When in theory, anyone can do it. It's just giving each person the right exercise to do for what they can do at that point of time.
I know, again, Dan, I know that your campaign, the summer campaign, is talking a lot about small differences or small changes to make a big difference, which obviously relates to what Stephen is saying there. I mean, what are you trying to provide for people with this, through this campaign?
So it's a mixture of that reflection on your health generally, and about that investment in yourself as a person. So that can be both physically, and when we're talking about small changes, it might be for somebody, you know, maybe just walking somewhere that they would have, you know, got in the car to get to, or it could be, you know, attending, say, a classes like Steve's, where you are, you know, acknowledging you're at the starting point, but you've got a goal where you want to get to, which is being a bit more fit, and maybe you do want to go to a dance class, but you're quite far away from that in view of your current physical ability. So I think we're trying to, you know, help people understand it isn't just about running marathons. It's not about climbing mountains. It's about those small day-to-day choices that you're making, and that can be both through your diet as well. And then we start bringing in other things around, you know, food, smoking, drinking, and other things. But just about people understanding, you know, and having a bit more education around maybe the risks that they're playing around with. One of the other things is about building confidence, and what we find with our clients is, you know, I think sport gets watered down into the word exercise, which gets watered down into the word activity, which, you know, all the while gets sort of, you know, slightly sort of watered down even further. But it's often that people don't see that connection between what they feel they can do and these things going on. And often we see our role in that, there's that encouragement side of, you know, well, we'll give you an activity befriender to go to that class with you. You know, peer support, you know, let's do it together. And also trying to help people just, you know, build that little bit of confidence up to take part. Because when they do take part, usually we then hear they absolutely loved it. They want to do it every week, and now they want to do it twice a week. And often one-to-one sessions then lead into group sessions, which then starts to, you know, widen that older person's social circle and, you know, mental stimulation and all the other benefits that come with that. So for me, the campaign's a little bit about trying to sort of ring the bell of that, you know, have a think about what you want to do in your life. And then actually there's loads of organisations across the city and county who can give you that little bit of support to get there. And Age UK Norwich is one of those people. So is EPIC and Active Norfolk. And yeah, there's loads of people who can help.
I mean, I do a bit of yoga myself, and so it's kind of this idea possibly that what physical activity could be is probably much more wide-ranging than people imagine. And so I wonder, you know, Stephen, you specialise in working with older people. What do you find are actually gets them going? What gets people involved? Would you say?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what people's sort of goals are as well. So if you're obviously referring to yoga purely as an example, if someone's having more, suffering more from sort of stress from the impacts of not seeing their family and friends, yoga would be a great way just to relax the body, relax the muscles, stretch you out, and will put you in that good mindset. And then people have identified, some people in my class have identified that they have, they can't walk to the shop as easy as they could before. They can't. Stairs are becoming more of a challenge. They can come and do a little bit of strength-based exercise work and some stamina work, and that can improve those activities of daily living, which I think is probably one of the main focuses for older people, especially the older bracket range of older people, is being able to maintain their independence for as long as they can and be able to do their day-to-day activities for as long as they can. I think that's one of the main aspects of healthy aging in general, is to keep that independency.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, I'm wondering, we talked about your organisation strategy of sort of creating a culture, which is obviously, it's not just about older people, it's about everybody. I wonder how do you think this how does this fit in with your broader strategy, really, with Active Norfolk?
I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think for too long we've invested in short-term fixes. Paying for something to happen might get you access to a number of people for the amount of time that service is funded, but the funding falls away and the service falls away, and individuals often revert back to previous behaviours. I think what we're trying to do as an organisation and working across the system, with key organisations like EPIC Norwich and with the work that Steve does, is trying to make a kind of a more of a profound change about the nature of the relationship that we have with physical activity as a society. Clearly that's a long-term change, and we're talking in many ways generational in some ways, trying to help young people now develop a good relationship with physical activity that they continue through their lives, helping people of working age to incorporate and embed physical activity into their daily lives so that it's just something that they do and isn't something that's necessarily thought about. When people transition into retirement, taking the opportunities that come potentially with a bit more free time to think about how physical activity can be part of their future and helping them live well. And then as we continue to age, recognizing that the real serious value that physical activity adds to quality of life for people, in all the different contexts that we've discussed already. So the work that we're trying to do at Active Norfolk is kind of bringing together a whole range of organisations from across health, social care, local government, the voluntary and community sector to unite around things which we all care about, and effectively that's making people's lives better. Our vehicle is physical activity, so we're trying to embed and integrate physical activity into the thinking of all those different parts of the system, and to help people make good decisions around how they can stay well and active.
Dan, you referred earlier briefly to the idea that there's a cultural issue here. I think you said that we're not very good at sport in this country. So
I think
a cultural issue, yeah.
It's a complex problem, isn't it? And I think what I've reflected on over the last year is about the messaging and the education that came with COVID, about how there was a dramatic shift in view of talking to the population, if you like, about a health risk. Well, obviously we've got other health risks, being overweight or obese is a health risk, and we've done big campaigns around smoking. But generally having physical activity embedded in day-to-day life, is for all ages. And Ben sort of put some good phases around that about, what is the model at schools, and is that working? Are we investing enough in schools in view of starting some positive behaviours that will then go into your 20s and 30s, and then how do you then look after people in the workplaces? And that's not just giving them a £5 voucher to the gym. It might be about it being more culturally, obvious within the workplace. I've worked in some organisations where, they encourage you to have a standing desk. They encourage you to not sit down in meetings, or to go out for a walk in a park to have a meeting and not just sit in a meeting room and have a coffee. So I suppose there's little changes like that which then make physical activity a sort of normal behaviour. And I think that's what I think we've probably got to develop, a bit more normal, regular behaviours like that, where we don't think about doing activity, but we are actually doing it. And then, those then get ingrained in view of gearing up to later life and continuing those. And, like we've done a lot of work, as I'm sure Steve has, around falls prevention, but I always think we're doing falls prevention ever since, we started to learn to walk, really, and the strength and behaviour you have around keeping yourself agile, fit, and looking after your body paves a good way for when you are 65, 75, 85. So yeah, I think it's that, I always think about it as, as thinking about the problem in your lifetime, not just when the crisis hits. So that's a challenging change to make.
Are we saying, Steve, or all of you really, are we saying that perhaps 30, 40 years ago, people in this country just had a more physically active life, whether they liked it or not, in a sense that life just was more physically active? Is that been the change, would you say, Stephen?
Part of, I think lifestyles back that far ago were more active, but then you've got since that time, I think, the average life expectancy has gone up. So we are obviously medication and health provisions have increased, so they are making people live longer. So I think that's, a thing in itself to tackle that. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, cool. Right. Look, this has been really, I've got a lot out of this, and we've covered quite a lot of points, and I'm just wondering if I can just wind up by asking each of you. So the HUK campaign talks a lot about small steps to make a big difference. If you could offer one tip to an older person who wanted to make a bit of a difference to their physical health, what would it be? Perhaps start with you, Ben, if we can.
I mean, I've got something quite controversial. It depends how controversial we want to be today. There's a study conducted by a range of partners. I mean, it was principally focused on cancer. The origins of the study, it's called EPIC, is the study, for those people that want to look it up. European Physical something, I can't remember the acronym anyway. But one of the interesting points that study found was the single biggest factor which influenced the likelihood of an older person to be physically active was one thing. And that one thing was dog ownership. Because come rain or shine, if you own a dog, that dog needs walking. So there are obviously broader issues and other things to consider, but genuinely, I think having an external factor which can help you motivate you to do something. So it might not be a dog, it might be a friend. It might be that you've got a friend and you agree and you keep each other on track and you support each other, or it might be a family member. But I think doing something which doesn't entirely depend on your own, strength of will to keep you doing it. If you can have something else to help with that, then I think that's not a bad thing to do.
Good one. Dan, I know your charity has actually got a project for older people to foster dogs at the moment.
Yeah, that's why I was not actually. I thought, thanks, Ben. Good plug there. Our RSPCA pilot, which is exactly the reason for this. It's also companionship, but just get some positive behaviours around physical activity as well. My one would be, Norwich is a great city, and so is the county of Norfolk, and there's some wonderful things people can do. So I think it's about actually reflecting on maybe things you used to do when you were younger, reconnecting with those things. There's lower intensity models of most sports and activities out there, or try something that you've always wanted to have a go at, whether that's yoga or whether that's playing a game of badminton. There'll be something out there you can connect with. And also, there's a lot of organisations out there if you want support to get there, or if you want support and companionship to go to those clubs with. And I think what we see from our clients is, once you're there, once you're connected, it starts to get embedded as a regular habit. But you've got to reach out and go for it yourself. So it's we all have to sort of come to the table, if you like, and but there's lots of support to help you get there.
Stephen, top tip.
Mine's what sort of a starting point. Try and reduce the amount of time you sit down. So try and, if you're able to get up on your feet, spend as much time day to day. I've got that habit of sitting down watching telly at least every hour. Get up on your feet, have a walk around. Just a good simple step to get into physical activity.
That's a very doable thing for everyone, I'm sure. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much. So thank you all. I hope everyone listening to this has found something to inspire them from it. Certainly, I'm a 70-year-old who'll be getting back on my bike later this week. And so thank you to Ben Jones from Active Norfolk, Stephen Hitcham from EPIC Norfolk, and Dan Skipper from Age UK Norwich. All the contact details for those organisations will be appearing on your screen. And thank you all for listening, and please look out for the next in this series of later life conversations with Age UK Norwich. Thank you.